Tonight on Legislative Review. A $5 billion proposal to restore fish habitat. Plus, the House debates the Senate's proposed transportation budget. And a bill aimed at wildfire mitigation. You're watching Legislative Review. Thank you for watching Legislative Review. I'm Angela Nolasco with today's top discussions in the state legislature.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the Ways and Means Committee.
A new bill introduced in the Senate is drawing attention from environmental groups, utility companies, and Washington state tribes. Members of the Senate Ways and Means Committee convened late Tuesday to hear Senate Bill 5804 concerning culvert removals and improving the survival of salmon and steelhead. The bill proposes a new tax on light and power utilities to fund projects dedicated to removing fish passage barriers and restoring fish habitat. If passed, it will authorize up to $5 billion in bonds over the next 15 years, solely backed by this new tax revenue. This follows a 2013 U.S. District Court injunction that upheld tribal fishing rights and required that the state address barriers that prevent fish from reaching spawning areas. The goal was to open up to 90% of fish habitat by 2030. To date, over 140 of these barriers have been fixed, but there are still many more to go, with a current estimated cost of $5 billion. The bill would also redirect funds from other public works accounts to help cover costs. Democratic Senator Yasmin Trudeau is one of the bill's sponsors.
We have a federal injunction, we have a state obligation, the case was settled, and we do, in fact, now have a legal obligation to meet.
In a remote testimony, Rosemary LeClaire, chair of the Nooksack tribe, supported the bill.
Since the treaties were signed, salmon populations have collapsed, largely because habitat has been destroyed or made inaccessible. One of the most critical and cost-effective steps to return salmon to healthy populations is to restore their access to blocked habitat.
John Rothan of Avista Corp., a Spokane-based utility company, spoke to oppose the bill.
We struggle with the idea of putting the financial obligation on electric utility customers. The bill tethers utility customers to an enormous obligation, the full scope of which we do not know. Today's cost of culvert replacement is nearly double of what we thought it was just a couple of years ago. It's plausible the assumptions that this revenue stream won't be enough and the utility ratepayers will be on the hook for whatever final amount this will be and for however long it will take.
In gross, substitute Senate Bill 5161. Clerk will read.
An act relating to transportation fiscal matters.
State senators approved a bipartisan transportation package on Saturday that would move the completion of the North Spokane corridor forward, raise billions through increased gas taxes and EV car tabs, and narrow the budget deficit, a roughly $1 billion gap between 2025 and 2027. Seen by some state senators as a bipartisan compromise between Senate Democrats and Republicans, the budget, or Senate Bill 5161, was debated on the House floor Wednesday by state representatives. It's projected to raise $10.2 billion over 6 years and includes a 6-cent increase to the state's gas tax, which would bring it up to 55.4 cents per gallon. If passed, it would take 0.3% of the state's sales tax and increase registration fees for non-gas powered vehicles like EVs and hybrids. Last month, state representatives released a separate transportation proposal that includes a 9-cent increase to the gas tax and a RUC, or road usage charge. The Senate transportation package would invest $366 million in active transportation, $700 million in road safety projects, and $33.3 million to improve safety in rural areas and railroads. House Transportation Committee Chair Jake Fye of Tacoma spoke to support the proposed budget.
Sometimes we can get ahead of ourselves a little bit in our enthusiasm and for our desires to see infrastructure get built or preserved or maintained. But it all has a consequence to make sure that we do this in a responsible way and that we don't get ahead of ourselves in what our construction industry that does such a great job of building projects can actually handle.
Echoing his stance, Ranking Minority Member Andrew Barkis.
Maintaining our state patrol to make sure that the men and women who serve the people of Washington State and protect us every single day on the road are taken care of. making sure that maintenance and preservation is a priority and that safety is part of that conversation to make our roads as safe as possible. We're not assuming that we're going to have all this extra revenue and that we're going to be able to do all these new things. Madam Speaker, this is not a transportation revenue package. This is not another Connecting Washington or Move Ahead. This is a transportation budget.
However, not all House Republicans are on board. Speaking in opposition, Republican Representative Gloria Mendoza of Grandview.
One of the biggest concerns that I have with this budget is that it takes out some safety projects that have been already in the works to add bike paths and walk paths. And I just cannot support the high increases in the taxes that are in this budget. Just the high affordability crisis that we are facing today, where families are struggling to make ends meet. I cannot stand here and just vote along with the committee.
The House took a floor vote.
The Speaker has started the roll call machine. Has every member voted? Representative Rule, Representative McIntyre. Would any member like to change their vote? The Speaker's about to lock the roll call machine. The Speaker has locked the roll call machine. The clerk will take the record.
Madam Speaker, there are 66 yeas, 30 nays, 2 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5161 is declared passed.
The budget now heads back to the Senate for further review of its House amendments. In the wake of the devastating fires that ravaged communities across the Pacific, lawmakers are considering ways to strengthen the state's resiliency against wildfires. As more homes and properties are threatened by wildfires, many insurance companies are pulling out of the market, leaving residents vulnerable without coverage. House Bill 1539, which was debated on the Senate floor Wednesday afternoon, proposes to establish a Wildfire Mitigation and Resiliency Standards Workgroup, spearheaded by the state's insurance commissioner and the commissioner of public lands. The group will be tasked with studying and recommending ways to improve statewide wildfire mitigation, come up with a comprehensive prevention strategy, and report their findings to the legislature by the end of the year. The group will include representatives from the insurance industry, local emergency management, firefighters, small forest and rural landowners, the real estate industry, and public and private electric utility companies. Speaking to support the bill, Republican Senator Shelley Short.
We know that we have had landowners all across the state of Washington that have had challenges when it comes to property casualty insurance, specifically dealing with wildfire. This bill is very timely. It puts everybody together.
No one opposed the bill.
Mr. President, there are 49 ayes, 0 nay.
Having received a constitutional majority, substitute House Bill 1539 as amended is declared passed. Title of the bill will be the title of the act.
Having passed in the Senate, House Bill 1539 heads back to the House for further deliberation. That's it for this episode of Legislative Review. Make sure to join us nightly at 8 and 11 for your highlights in the state legislature. And follow us on social media. Have a good night.